Hi everyone, I'm back with another video. This time I'll be reviewing the iFi Neo iDSD. So this is one of iFi's newest products, and it's a kind of a small desktop DAC amp, so it's an all-in-one unit. These types of units are very interesting to me, so I just want to thank Lawrence at iFi for giving me the opportunity to give this a listen and a review. So just a little brief overview of this device. This is a DAC and an amp, as mentioned before. So it has iFi's traditional kind of Burr Brown house sound. However, the special thing about this particular DAC is that it has a new digital filter, and you cannot switch the digital filter at all. So it's a built-in custom filter. So iFi actually worked with MQA, of all people, to work on a digital filter that is time domain based. So it'll be, if you look at the time plot, it's kind of like a minimum phase filter. So it has no pre-ring, it has your impulse signal, and then a little bit of post ringing as well. So they call this the GTO filter, which is the Gibbs transient optimized filter. The special thing about this filter is that they worked with MQA to optimize how long the post ringing is for the transient impulse signal. So the human ear can hear around 700 microseconds of delay. So because of that, they optimized their filter so that their delay is also around 700 microseconds. Interestingly enough, according to their white paper, they said that the more taps you have, the more pre or post ringing, or just total amount of ringing, your filter will introduce into the digital to analog conversion. So for this filter, they only have a 32 tap length. So a tap is basically a digital filter delay line. So the more taps you have, the more delays you will have in your overall digital to analog conversion. So that was just an interesting thing to read about for this particular DAC. And I'll get more into the sound and what I think of it later into this video. But just like a lot of iFi's other products, this can do DSD 512 as well as PCM 768 kilohertz and MQA as well. So MQA is not something that I particularly listen to. I don't really have an opinion on it. I just haven't really looked into it too much. It is a niche product. So if you have a service such as Tidal, you're able to get MQA audio from that as well. Also, what's special about this unit is, as you can see from the antenna here, this can allow a Bluetooth connection. So you can actually connect a smartphone or other streaming device to the Neo iDSD, and then you can just stream music from that device, and then that will go into your headphones. This does not have Bluetooth headphone connection though, so you can't use it as a completely wireless system. As for the amp section of this DAC amp, it has a 4.4 millimeter balanced audio output, as well as a regular 6.3 millimeter unbalanced output. So only two headphone outputs, and it's kind of nice to see them use a current connection with the 4.4 millimeter Pentacon adapter. So the back of this unit is pretty simple as well. We have your regular RCA left and right outputs for unbalanced audio, as well as balanced audio XLR left and right as well. As for the inputs, they're pretty simple as well. We have coaxial SPDIF input, optical Toslink input, USB input. We have power and your Wi-Fi antenna. So that's pretty much it for the inputs and the outputs. The cool thing about this device is that it also comes with a vertical stand. So if you want to mount this on your desk in a vertical fashion, it's very easy to do so. You just go like that and you're all set. Very nice, slim, compact form factor. My preference is for smaller form factors, so this is perfect because I have a small desk, not much space, and having your DAC vertically just really fits nicely in there. What's also cool is that if you turn the unit on, you can see it has the vertical text. This has both horizontal and vertical orientation for the display. So it's really cool. Very nice and easy to see your display when you have it vertically, like what I was using this with. The volume knob is pretty smooth overall. There is some wiggle room though, so it is a little bit wobbly, but it's very responsive as a whole. You can push in to mute your audio as well. So it's a very quick volume adjustment. Here we have the source input. So if you change the source, you can click on this button and it will display an icon for which input you're using. If you use the combination of buttons and the volume knob, you can get different options. So if you press and hold the volume knob, you actually get a dimming option for the display, which is really cool. So you can turn the display off after like 5 seconds. Like so. So it's a really nice feature if you plan to use your device in the dark. And then also, if you turn the power off and you push the power source and power at the same time, you can choose between what type of output on the back you get. So you can have a fixed volume, which is set volume or set voltage, or you can change it as a variable output as well. So I've been using it as the fixed line output. So the interface is very easy to use. I like it a lot. Now on to the meat of the review, the sound. I think the team at iFi did a really awesome job working with MQA to get the digital filter optimized, because I think the star of this unit is the digital filter and the DAC section overall. So as a DAC, this thing sounds freaking fantastic. If you output even just unbalanced audio, RCA output to an external amp, the DAC sounds super clean. It's a little bit mid-forward to my preference of what I would consider neutral, but overall it's super clean. There's a lot of detail in each of the instruments, really good instrument separation and depth into the sound stage, and just overall has a really clean sound to it. Very black background, instruments well separated, pretty good overall frequency response. It sounds very linear. And things just sound very natural to me in general. This may be in part due to the filter, because the filter, as I had mentioned before, is supposed to replicate what the human ear can hear. So having the time domain optimized filter can probably contribute to that sound. It just sounds very smooth and overall just really awesome. Also probably adding to the sound is the really low jitter that this unit has because of the femto clocks that it has for the timing of the different sample rates that you might have with this device. So having a low jitter also helps with the digital to analog conversion. As a Bluetooth streamer, I guess, I can't really say much about the Bluetooth. I was using my phone to stream audio to this, which then I can listen through the headphone outputs. Overall, it's a pretty cool experience if you're just planning to browse your phone and you have your headphones connected to the Neo iDSD. You can just swipe on your phone to switch tracks, and then you can just quickly listen to your audio that way. The additional thing that you get in the package is a remote control that you can use. I didn't use the remote control because I was sitting at my desk the entire time with this unit next to me, so I just used the volume knob here instead of using the remote to change that. And then moving on to using this device as a DAC amp, which I had intended to use, I have kind of mixed feelings about it as a DAC amp. Again, as a DAC, as I just mentioned, it was fantastic. Probably one of my favorite DACs I've ever listened to, maybe in part due to the GTO filter. However, as a DAC amp, I find it to be a little bit compromised. Because the DAC part is so amazing, I feel like the amp section kind of holds it back. So if you're listening to the Neo iDSD and you have the regular 6.3mm output, I feel like you're losing a lot of detail and overall clarity that you would normally get from an external amplifier. So that's kind of a disappointment. The soundstage kind of collapses a little bit. Instrument separation is a little bit more blurred. The overall frequency response becomes a little bit harsher in the more forward mids. So overall, I feel like using the 6.3mm unbalanced output is kind of putting this unit at a handicap. It's not really the best option from my experience. However, I did get to use the 4.4mm balanced output. I had to use an adapter because all of my headphones use the XLR connector. So I had to use an adapter to go to the 4.4. But using the 4.4 was a better experience for me. I got to more hear kind of the transparency of the amp section from the DAC. So comparing the DAC section with the line output to the DAC and amp section with the 4.4 millimeter balanced output sounded much more close together than compared to the 6.3 millimeter output, which was kind of disappointing. So as a whole, if you use the Neo iDSD as a balanced DAC amp, then I think this is a really solid unit as an all-in-one device. It's a little bit confusing as to how the internals work because according to their website, they use a what's called PureWave dual mono approach. However, the DAC section is one chip, so it's not really dual mono. It does process the left and right audio separately. However, they're not on separate IC chips, so it's not really dual mono in that sense. In terms of the power output, honestly, for a desktop unit, I was kind of surprised at how low the output was. For the line outputs, there's the fixed voltage of 2.2, which is kind of standard. And then with the balanced output, you get 4.4, so double the voltage. That makes sense. However, if you use the variable line output, you get a 7.7 voltage balanced output and a 3.9 voltage output from the RCA connection. So it is a higher output with the variable line output. So just be careful when you're connecting this to other amplifiers. In terms of the headphone outputs, on the balanced side, you get 68.6 milliwatts of power from 600 ohms, or basically 1 watt for the 32 ohm. So it's not really the most powerful headphone output section there is. For the unbalanced section, you get a mere 17.6 milliwatts of power out of the 600 ohms, and then only about 300 milliwatts of power at the 32 ohms. So that's honestly kind of weak for a headphone output. Not one of the Neo iDSD's strongest points, but it's able to, I guess, sufficiently drive, per se, most headphones. I was using this with my Focal Clear and LCD2 Bamboo edition. So with the LCD2, they were driven kind of okay-ish out of the unbalanced output. But again, I think the unbalanced output does the DAC itself a disfavor. It doesn't really complement the DAC very well. However, with the balanced output, I was hearing a much better improvement, much more clear and linear kind of sound, which is what I would expect from a product of this caliber. So the unbalanced is, yeah, again, kind of disappointing. The balanced is better. So this kind of brings me to the conclusion of this review. I think as a whole, this unit is a really flexible device, considering this is a purist type of device, meaning there's no DSP that the user can adjust whatsoever. This is a really solid device for that. It does a really good job overall for the sound. However, if you're planning to use this as an all-in-one device, going with the 4.4 millimeter output would be your best option. The 6.3 millimeter is disappointing a little bit. It hinders the sound as a whole, considering how strong the DAC section is of this device. But if you plan to use this as just the DAC itself, I think this is, even at the price point of $700, this is a really solid device. I like the filtering that this unit does. It sounds just so natural and very clean, just fantastic overall. In terms of the inputs and outputs, you get a lot of flexibility with different inputs. You have coaxial, Toslink, USB, and Bluetooth. The Bluetooth option I don't think a lot of people will use, but it's an option that's here if people need it. That's why they have the removable antenna for the Bluetooth section. If you don't use it, just take the antenna off, no problem. And then in terms of the inputs, you get a lot of flexibility as well. And then in terms of the outputs, you get some flexibility with using it with the external amplifier as well. And with the fixed and variable outputs of the voltage that you can set when you power on the device, you get some flexibility for powered speakers or passive speakers. So it's kind of nice to have the extra flexibility and like just the straight 2.2 volts for your standard RCA, 4.4 for the balanced, and then having a variable output in case you need to use that as like a preamp. So yeah, pretty flexible device at $700 US. I think this is kind of a pretty nice unit. However, if you just plan to use this for single-ended outputs, I think you could probably find something better in that price range, but if you plan to use balanced audio, you'll get a much better value out of this than that. In addition to those, like a lot of iFi products, or pretty much all iFi products, you get really everything but the kitchen sink inside of the package. So you get your USB 3.0 cable. You don't get a Toslink cable or a coax cable, but you do get RCA outputs, and the included power is really nice. This is iFi's own iPower AC adapter, so it provides really clean input DC power into the Neo iDSD. So you're pretty covered on the power end. You don't need to go out and spend a lot of money on a power cable or a power adapter or linear power supply. It's pretty solid overall package that you get with the Neo iDSD. So like everything iFi, this can pretty much do everything itself as well. If you throw MQA files at it, you can just decode it on here. If you throw DXD music at this can play it. If you play CD quality audio, this can play it. Like I said in my iDSD Black Label video, although this can decode Octa DSD as well as 2x DXD, you don't have any music that needs that type of decoding. However, if you use software to upsample your audio, I think upsampling does provide some benefits in terms of the filtering effects that the DAC section does. And with this awesome GTO filter, it does a phenomenal job if you upsample your audio. So I've been upsampling my audio to 2x the original recording resolution, and so that provides kind of a smoother overall sound. And with the GTO filter, it's just freaking awesome. So good job for iFi and MQA on working on that filter, because that thing is really good sounding to me. The unbalanced audio section, maybe not so much, and the balanced section does sound better. So overall, pretty good unit if you plan to use this for balanced audio or just as a standalone DAC. So those are my overall conclusions for this Neo iDSD. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video.